When it comes to travel, everyone wants a good deal. But how is it that some people snag the best prices when it comes to flight tickets? Well, the CEO of Next Vacay said his ticket prices, in fact, dropped about 60% because he's leaving from Baltimore in the United States instead of Atlanta, and he's only paying $2,300 for a round-trip business class ticket. Now, that same ticket would have cost him more than $6,000 from Atlanta. We'll talk to him in just a minute, but first, some airline travel tips for you. Take a look at this. Be flexible on your departure and arrival airports. It could save you, and try to fly a local carrier if you're traveling internationally. You also want to make sure that you compare travel sites. Check Yatra, Make My Trip, Jet Radar, Momondo, Cheapo Air, Skyscanner, just for a few. We'll post all of these on our website, weonews.com. Check the apps. There's an app called Trigger In that will track the flight prices regularly and give you an update. So you want to make sure you snag the best deal. If you're going to book, you might want to book in the middle of the week instead of booking Saturday or Sunday. Everybody wants those weekends off, but you will save some cash if it's in the middle of the week. Typically Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are when the prices drop. Now, when there's more volume, you don't want to be booking for flights. So look for deals online. Facebook and Twitter typically offer deals on social media. Also search for deals in the morning. Now, try to book at least 6 weeks in advance of your trip. 2 to 3 months is a good rule of thumb, of course. The closer you are to your travel date, prices, of course, will go up. When it comes to holidays, everybody wants Christmas or New Year's. You want all Diwali, you want all those days, but fly the day of the festival, the day of the holiday, not the day before, because that's when things will be expensive. Book connecting flights. Direct flights are more expensive, so perhaps a stopover and a layover may save you some cash. Afternoons and late nights typically going to save you some cash as well. See if you also qualify for a corporate discount. And look for all major cities. If you're looking internationally, there could be other airports, other cities that may offer a better deal. All right, let's dive right in, get you the best deals. Let's now go to Naveen Dithakavi, the chief deal hunter. He is going to get his perspective on this story. He founded Next Vacay last year. Naveen, pleasure having you on the show. Everybody wants to know the best deals. Why did you start Next Vacay? And let's help people save some money on travel.
First, thanks for having me on, Archit. We started Next Vacay because we were traveling ourselves on great flight deals. When we first got married, when we got married in 2014, my wife and I said before we have children, we wanted to travel the world. And we knew that we had a certain amount of budget set for travel, but we had so many different places on our travel bucket list that we wanted to. So we started searching around the internet, the general websites, Kayak, Google Flights, and you would see the standard retail prices that most people see. However, there's a lot of secret places on the internet, about 40 or 50 different sites that have that announce discounted fares. And then what we did is we developed a software algorithm to go and then analyze those discounted fares and then develop a predicted pattern on when fares are going to decrease based on airline fare wars that are about to start or that are currently in progress.
Let's actually talk about one of your most recent bookings. We talked about it earlier as we began this segment, this flight from the United States to India. We see a lot of people going back and forth, people here going there to visit family or perhaps to study, a lot of students or young professionals. But there are some tricks and perhaps things that they could use to lower that flight. Tell us about your recent experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we've seen in the last about year, 2 years so in the United States is an influx of Middle Eastern carriers, Emirates, Etihad, Qatar, coming into the United States. This has helped by increasing competition to destinations like India and vice versa. However, what has happened recently, and as you must have covered, is that Qatar has a little bit of turmoil. So we no longer send our members deals through Qatar because there's a possibility of airspace being denied. So when we now look at our deals, we look for deals to India from European carriers, other Middle Eastern carriers, and we look for how we can get the member to India. The destination is India. They're not necessarily they have to leave from their home city, but how can we get to India for cheapest? When I booked my trip from Atlanta to India, I did not necessarily want to spend $6,000 on a business class ticket from Atlanta to India. So I said, well, who else is flying to India and from what other East Coast cities of the United States? So I checked every single airport that has an international hub, And then I found that Baltimore was currently in a fare war for flights to India. And so all I did was I booked the flight from Baltimore through Atlanta to Paris to Mumbai, and I got the ticket for $2,300. And that's because multiple airlines were trying to seize business in Baltimore. And that competition allows for savvy travelers to get great deals.
We're also putting up on the screen the better airlines, the world's best airlines: Qatar, Singapore, All Nippon Airways, Emirates, Cathay Pacific, Ava Air, Lufthansa, Etihad, Hainan, and Garuda Indonesia. Should people, when they're booking, perhaps use these websites? Kayak.com, in India, Make My Trip, Yatra.com. Of course, Next Vacay also launching in the fall. Are these good in certain ways, or is it cheaper? Are you going to get a better deal if you go to the airlines directly? The pros and cons, perhaps, on these air tracking sites versus the airline websites directly.
So it's a combination of both. When the airlines are announcing deals on their own website, you should pay attention to that. Not because your home city would be on sale, but it indicates that a fare war is about to start. When a fare war starts, say that Jet is going to start dropping prices out of their hub cities that do international travel, well, then what's going to happen is that the other international airlines, both Indian and non-Indian airlines, are going to start to fight Jet and drop their prices as well. So that provides it's a buyer's market, and you can decide which airline you want, and the prices are going to start to drop. So pay attention to the airline deals that be announced by the airline, but use it to your advantage by analyzing what other airlines are looking to compete and also drop their prices.
All right, Naveen, we'll continue the conversation in just a second, but we also want to get some perspective. Recently, there was a report that came out saying airlines do use dynamic pricing strategies, so not everyone on your flight has paid for that ticket, the economy ticket or business class or first class. The recent report says sometimes the flights could be 6 times more expensive than your seatmate. 6 times. Quite a huge figure. Hopper, in fact, says try some non-traditional vacation spots. Perhaps fly into bigger airport hubs instead. And you may want to drive to your destination by flying into another airport. So, yes, you certainly want to use those airfare tracking websites. We'll put those up on your screen in just a minute. Also know when your flight price has dropped. You will save a lot of cash if you book early, but you don't want to book too early. 2 to 3 months, a good rule of thumb, but not a year, because things could fluctuate between now and then. You'll also be out of luck, and you'll also be out of money. Now, if you have time, try to take a flight with stopovers instead of the direct flight. They typically will end up saving you because of the bundling. Perhaps book a longer journey, so even if you plan to get off of that stopover, you will still save some cash. Again, avoid flying on weekends. Tuesday to Thursday are the better deals to fly. And you want to avoid flying during when the season is peak. So summer is obviously going to be more expensive around the holidays when the flights get more and more expensive, and they'll be more packed, so it doesn't really do you a whole lot of benefits. All right, let me go back to Naveen. Naveen, let me ask you with regards to some of those tips that you may have. Have you noticed some things, have people come back to you and said, this has been great, or things that perhaps they didn't know about, some of those success stories that you could share?
Absolutely. So with respect to dynamic pricing, it's definitely going on. You can try things like opening your browser and using an incognito window, which clears all your cookies, so that they're seeing that you're not a repeat customer, or that you're not trying to get back on that flight that you may have missed out on the first time. You can also try using a VPN and setting your country as another country. So, for example, if you're based out of India, change your country to, say, Hong Kong, and you can examine to see, well, what is that airline charging people who they believe are in Hong Kong? And a lot of people have saved a lot of money by using that technique, and also the repositioning, which we talked about earlier.
Naveen, I was also reading up something online earlier on, a very interesting point, and some people don't realize is when you want to book a ticket, so suppose I want to do Delhi to New York, but you end up getting a better deal, perhaps Delhi, New York, LA, and you just don't take the New York, LA portion of the journey. It's still perfectly allowed, but may save you a deal. Walk us through perhaps how people could perhaps book a longer leg, but you don't take the entire leg, which unfortunately doesn't benefit the airline, but certainly benefits your wallet.
Yes, and I'm actually doing this on my return journey. Here's my real return journey. It's Mumbai to Paris, Paris to Atlanta, Atlanta to Baltimore, because it was a round trip ticket from Baltimore. So what am I going to do? When I land in Atlanta, that's where I do U.S. immigration and U.S. customs. In the Atlanta airport, your bags do not get automatically checked through to your next flight because you have to clear customs. So when you gain possession of your bag after clearing customs, you're presented with an option to either go to your connecting flight and recheck your bag using the connecting flight, or exit the airport. Since my home is Atlanta, I'm simply going to take my bag after I clear customs and exit the airport. And that is what an example is that your members can use as well.
Absolutely. Well, what about some of the airlines? You know, I know we're certainly not trying to advocate or perhaps promote any particular airline, but you've certainly flown a lot. Many of your folks who've used NextVacay have used a lot of airlines. Are there some perhaps that are known specifically for better deals, some that are worth that price? But, you know, sometimes there's airlines in the U.S. that put a really low price and they start adding prices, adding for baggage, adding for this. Talk to us about that, some of the preferred or better airlines.
Yes, you do see a lot of new international discount carriers like WOW, which is a great airline, perfectly safe, a nice experience. However, they're making their money by nickel and diming you on bag fees. So when you do look at discount carriers, you do have to keep in mind what is the total cost of the ticket, and then weigh your options. Does that really beat a traditional carrier that comes with a complimentary checked bag? And many times they don't. So you have to calculate and see if it's right for you.
Okay, this is a little bit off course, but I'm going to ask you this question anyway. Most people book economy, a lot of people do. They want to perhaps get upgraded to business or premium economy or first. I've done it and I've gotten lucky a few times. Do you have a strategy for folks who perhaps want to get that upgrade last minute but don't want to pay for it? Is there a strategy that you could perhaps recommend?
It's going to be tough to not have to pay for it. However, there are certain airlines that do hold business inventory for the last minute, and they offer you a really sweet deal to sit up front and get that lie flat seat for just pennies on the dollar compared to what it would have cost you had you bought it at the get-go. So if you fly during non-peak travel periods, then you're likely to have a emptier business class cabin, and you might be able to avail of these discounted deals for them to fill their business class cabin. And so that's one way. The other way to go about it is if it uses more luck, but is to stay loyal to a particular airline. When international flights get full, they're very reluctant to bump people from economy off the plane. And many times their business class cabin is not full. So if you have status or loyalty, they will look at the roster and they'll pick the person who has the highest status, the highest loyalty, who's still flying in economy, and ask them to move up front to the business class or first class cabin, opening up an economy class seat to get that last person on the plane.
All right, and sort of as we wrap this up, Naveen, what about, sometimes airlines, they overbook, they perhaps book more than they can actually handle, giving up your seat. Are there incentives to that? Getting perhaps a round-trip ticket, how much can you negotiate typically, or is that really, luck or, depending on the airline? Can you actually perhaps bargain to make your next vacation even better by giving up a seat on your booked flight?
You can. It depends on which country that you're in and which carrier that you're on. If you're based out of India, you can probably have your highest leverage with European-based carriers because all European-based carriers must follow European Union regulations regarding compensation for passengers, which are very generous, to be honest. So if you're looking to play that game, consider booking with a European-based carrier that has to follow those regulations. That is not the case with American carriers. They have played a different game and a different rule of regulations.
All right, Naveen Dithik will be joining us from Atlanta with NextVacay. Thank you so much for all of those tips. And of course, certainly you want to make sure that the country you travel to, you have the visa, traveler's insurance, and a valid passport. Well, that does it for this bulletin on travel and technology. You can track all of our stories in our digital, mobile, and social media platforms. Thanks so much for watching We On World is One News. I'm Archit Seshadri. Have a good night.